Arnab Goswami on the debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, time now for the nation's sharpest opinion. And I have said at the beginning of the last debate that we must not remain neutral at all. We must take sides. And I want to take that further by sharing with you 5 reasons why all of us, all right-thinking people, all rational people, all people who are against terrorism must support Israel. Reason number 1, because we in India are exactly in the same situation as Israel. Like Iran uses the Hamas, Houthi and Hezbollah as non-state terror fronts to target Israel, Pakistan uses the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Hizbul Mujahideen. Any Indian who backs the Hamas, the Houthi or the Hezbollah is also therefore effectively supporting Hafiz Saeed, and that is against national interest. Reason number 2, because on terrorism, there can be no middle line. On terrorism, it has to be a fight to the finish. In fact, we should learn from Israel and finish off the Pakistanis when they are weak. Just a couple of occasional surgical strikes is not enough. We must call the Pakistani bluff like the Israelis have called the Iranian bluff. Reason number 3, because might is right, and the willingness to use might, the willingness to use force in national interest is the mark of strong leadership. Parties like the Congress Party, like Asaduddin Owaisi, like Mehbooba Mufti, who are backing the Hamas, backing terrorist groups, are guilty of doing vote bank politics, wanting or hoping to get Muslim votes in exchange for supporting terrorist groups like the Hamas. But then, if religion and terror are not linked, then every Indian, Hindu or Muslim, or any religion must see terrorism for what it is and support Israel. We must support Israel because it is very likely that we will have to eventually do to the Pakistanis what Israel is doing to Iran today. Reason number 4, because the Hamas has used sexual violence, rape and gang rape as a weapon to celebrate and use for its strategic goals. The wokes have gone mad. Ladies and gentlemen, the wokes are mad to be defending gang rape as a weapon. And I challenge any woke to defend what the terrorists have done. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, reason number 5. And this is most important of all, because we must remember 26/11. I know that more than 15 years have passed, but if you support what Iran is doing today, then you will end up creating a situation where there can be another 26/11 on our soil in the future. Why did 26/11 happen? 26/11 happened because we had become a weak state, because we were forgiving with terrorist groups, and we had a weak and a spineless Prime Minister called Manmohan Singh. But this is 2024. The only way, I repeat, the only way is the Israeli way. The moral right to hit back is with them. And that is why we must all support Israel. Let's debate.
A full-scale war now seems to be brewing in West Asia. Israel and Iran are at a complete loggerheads. United States of America, Russia, France now officially involved. Has the war now entered a new and unprecedented phase? In the middle of all of this, where does India stand? Israel and Iran remain key factors in India's West Asia outreach. Key projects like Chabar Port and IMEC are on the cards for India.
We've been trying for almost 20 years now to have an agreement with Iran. The Chabahar port agreement actually is something bigger than a port. It is part of a connectivity change that we are looking at, and that's why we are very keen to go forward.
It's very interesting, there's a surge in the number of Indian students who have gone there. You spoke earlier about students. That's one place. In Israel today, our researchers are really making their mark. They are among our partners with whom we have very, very close and friendly ties. And a lot of it, I think, is based on civilizational respect for each other.
India has historical factors too that must be kept in mind. Israel directly supported India in the Indo-Pakistan wars of 1971 and 1999. But at the same time, Iran also remains important to India. The big question that now emerges: how will India navigate its foreign policy stance in such a geopolitically complex setting?
First, Ambassador Harshvardhan Shringla. Ambassador Shringla, good to have you back with us tonight.
Thank you.
We just were told by our news desk that a video has been put out by Netanyahu. I have the video. I'm playing the video out there. He's talking in Hebrew, but I have the translation of what he has said, Ambassador Shringla. Roughly, he has said, can we run the pictures, please? He has said that I would like to send my condolences from the bottom of my heart to the families of our heroes who fell in Lebanon. God bless their blood. May their memory be blessed. We are in the middle of a tough war against Iran's axis of evil, which wants to destroy us. This will not happen because with God's help, we will win together. We will return our abductees in the south. We will return our residents in the north. And we will guarantee the eternity of Israel. These are his words. And that's the video. As a statement of intent, since this comes soon after he has said that the UN Secretary General will not be allowed to set foot on Israeli soil for being ineffective, how do you view the present situation, Ambassador?
Well, what we saw yesterday was really an escalation, a very significant escalation of the situation in West Asia. For Israel, I think this also represents a direct involvement between two states. So far, the conflict has been between a state, that's Israel, and non-state actors, which is Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis.
Yes.
Now, with Iran's direct involvement, Israel is actually fighting on multiple fronts. And it is not that Israel has not fought on multiple fronts. They have done that in 65, in 73. 67, 73, and subsequently. So in a certain sense, they are geared up to fight on multiple fronts. But I think it does really mean that, there is an escalation in the overall situation because Iran has launched such a massive attack against Israel. And I think that attack was definitely different from the one in April in many senses, because this time there was no advance warning. They've used hypersonic missiles, which travel at the speed of about 18,000 kilometers an hour. And so far, the Iron Dome and the US and other sort of interceptors are not able to deal with these hypersonic missiles very effectively. They've also used a larger arsenal of 180 ballistic missiles as compared to 110 last time. And they've targeted population centers this time as opposed to, military bases and other outlying areas in Israel. And I think they've also had more impact than what it's made out to be because they've hit an Air Force base and, a few other places, but no casualties other than the one person in the West Bank who'd been killed. I think from that perspective, you can say that, the defense was fairly effective. But Israel was also helped by their allies. The United States used interceptors. The UK had fighters there. I'm told some of those missiles were shot down over Jordan also. So from a certain point of view, it had help from its allies here. And now, of course, you're seeing a new phase in Israeli incursions into Lebanon, where I think they are meeting, as expected, fairly stiff resistance in the areas where Hezbollah is fairly entrenched along the border. And they have to deal again with a network of tunnels and bunkers. And this is where I think the IDF is currently engaged. And as we speak, I think armored, brigades are also moving in. So in a certain sense, we are not sure whether it's just a border incursion or whether Israel would go further into Lebanon in order to secure its northern, borders, where a lot of people have been displaced. And Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Just don't want to be too cynical about it, but do you think Israel is getting carried away with its intelligence successes? At the end of the day, the pager blast explosions, as well as the human intelligence which was behind the killing of Nasrallah in his headquarters in Beirut, or the killing of Mohammed Deif, or the killing of Ismail Haniyeh. These are all intelligence successes. They are not military successes. So is Israel getting a little carried away with its intelligence successes and biting off more than it can chew? Or is this part of a well-calibrated plan with the Americans where they know what they are doing?
I would not put it as well-calibrated. I think Israel is a country that's used to working based on the situation. They're pragmatic, and as they see the situation unfolding, they will take their decisions. Clearly, they see that Hezbollah is today practically rudderless, with its top leadership being eliminated. They have definitely, taken casualties even among the cadres. So I think Israel will take advantage of that and move in further in order to deal Hezbollah a fairly lethal blow. Although I would say that Hezbollah, like all other such outfits, tend to spring back over a period of time, but at least it buys them time. And I think it will take some resources.
Don't give me a diplomatic answer to the last one, Mr. Shringla, but I think we should pick a side. We shouldn't overdo this business of, we'll be middle of the line, we'll manage the whole world. We can't. Which side would you pick?
In a certain sense, I think we've been very clear. This entire issue is about terrorism. Israel was not unprovoked. It was an unprovoked attack across the Gaza Strip when Hamas launched its terrorist attack about a year ago.
Yes.
Israel did not occupy Gaza Strip. It had not had any military, campaigns or military incursions into the Gaza Strip. It was attacked unilaterally and in an unprovoked manner. So I think Israel had every right to look at it as a terrorist attack and take the steps that are necessary for its defense. And you saw that Prime Minister Modi came out very strongly saying that, we support Israel in its endeavor to protect its own citizens. And also in the recent telephone conversation that he had with Prime Minister Netanyahu, he said that terrorism has no place in our world. I mean, just simply, there is no compromise on terrorism.
You'd pick the Israeli side?
He has been fairly clear on saying that we are with you when it comes to terrorism. At the same time, nobody wants to see an escalation in the conflict because we have so much at stake in the region.
We do.
So we're happy to, use any efforts that we can do to bring about secure reduction in the conflict.
I follow what you're saying, Dr. Shringla. Thank you so much for setting up for my debate this evening. I'll see you soon. My question tonight, which I would request every viewer and who's going to be part of the next debate, would be, which side should India pick in this growing conflict in the Middle East? Should we support Iran or should we support Israel? That's a question. You can vote. The QR code will be at the bottom of your screen. And Santosh Mehrotra, I want to start with you. Which side should we pick? I welcome also Professor Ashwini Mahapatra, former Dean of the School of International Studies at JNU. I welcome Dr. Shubhada Chaudhary, founder of the Middle East Insights Platform, Professor Madhav Nalapat, Vice Chairman of the Manipal Research Group, and Abhijit Chawda, well-known geopolitical strategist. I start with you, Dr. Mehrotra. This is fairly clear. You heard Dr. Shringla there, and if we don't support Israel now, we will end up supporting Hafiz Saeed, won't we? And I'm sure you wouldn't support Hafiz Saeed directly or indirectly.
I think you're oversimplifying, and I seriously doubt if Mr. Shringla would oversimplify in the way that you have been oversimplifying in your 5 points. So I could demolish most of your 5 points, but I wouldn't bother to do that. Let's just be serious rather than go back to your 5 points, which most of which are actually reasonably flippant. The bottom line, Mr. Goswami, is the following. Very straightforward. Netanyahu is running an illegal war. If that was not the case, Israel would not have been taken to the International Court of Justice, where the International Court of Justice is pretty much pronounced on the matter that he is committing a genocide. Secondly, we all know why Netanyahu is going on and on committing genocide, because he needs to remain in power. He was actually likely to be, when he left power, he would actually likely to end up in jail on account of many charges against him. Thirdly, without the US support and India's exports of ammunition to Israel, I think Israel itself may be in some difficulty. And as Mr. Shringla rightly and very wisely said, appropriately, that you may attack Hezbollah is going to bounce back. I mean, the US has been after Iran's life. Let's not forget what our relationship with Iran is like. We had already established a good relationship on account of the Chabahar port. It's already functioning since 2017. If there was more peace, which is what we should be aiming at in the region, and supporting all parties which are in favor of peace, in that case, of course we will not be supporting Hamas. Of course we will not be supporting Hezbollah. But nor should we be supporting a genocidal regime in Israel, which has been carrying out a war of occupation. If it had agreed to a two-state solution, the matter would have ended many years ago. But unfortunately, right-wing fascists like Mr. Netanyahu, who doesn't have a great deal of support within Israel, he was almost out of power a few years ago. He's using the Hamas attack against Israel. I've said enough. I think my position is fairly...
But please stay. I will not misinterpret you in the least. What you are saying, and I believe that's what you're saying, the sum total of what you mean to say, is that 1,200 Israelis who were attending a music festival were killed and hundreds of women gang raped because the Hamas... Because the Hamas wanted Netanyahu to stay in power.
So don't go back to 7th of October.
Why should I not go?
No, please do. But so you should then start with what the colonial British started and the US has supported since then, which is not supporting a two-state solution. Why couldn't the two-state solution be supported? Biden has still not supported the two-state
okay, we
solution.
see a response. One hand goes up, that's Abhijit Chawda. But Abhijit, let's go to Professor Nalapat first, and I will come to you. Time to pick a side. 97% of people on my program, and I know what some people will say, oh, this is right-wing channel, people, 97%. I can tell you.
We know who pays for you.
1 minute, please. See, don't cross the line. My advertisers pay for me, and they support me. The point here is, the Hamas, I'm sure, doesn't pay your bills, so don't get emotionally entangled with them. Professor Nalapat is on the other side of the debate right now. Professor Nalapat, which side should we pick?
Well, I'd like to say quite clearly that there is no question from the Prime Minister's recent, what we have seen from his conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He wants peace, but a peace minus terror. So the elimination of terrorism is a sine qua non of peace. And after the terrorism has been eliminated, definitely there ought to be peace. Now, quite frankly, Arnab, I have long been a great admirer of the Iranian people, but I would like to point out, very respectfully, that the real regime in Iran is not the regime that is headed by President Pezeshkian, a very able and noble individual, a true Persian, if I may say so. But it is headed by a gentleman called Ayatollah Khamenei. Now, I'm very sure nobody on this panel will disagree with me when I say that Ayatollah Khamenei has not fought an election with the people in his whole life, nor is he ever likely to. The clerical system rules Iran from 1979, and they created, along with other groups, a group of countries that do not accept the right of Israel to exist. And if I may point out, some of the groups, such as, for example, Hamas and even Hezbollah, do not recognize the right of Jewish people to exist. Now, the fact is that there has been a horrible Holocaust of the Jewish community back in the previous century, and I don't think anybody wants a Holocaust now as far as the Jewish community is concerned. So the October 7 attack triggered that particular defensive mechanism in their DNA and led to this very ferocious counterattack. I think India is maintaining a very wise policy, and our policy, I would again repeat, paraphrasing what the Prime Minister said, India wants peace, but it wants a peace minus terrorism. Arnab.
Yeah. So, Professor Ashwini Mahapatra, my own view, and is quite clear. We must not rationalize terrorists. We must not justify pirates, and we must not glamorize or romanticize suicide bombers. In this case, a certain part of the world is in a platonic relationship with terrorism. They almost make terrorists look like confused teddy bears, which they are not. In this case, we are dealing with the Houthis. We are dealing with the problem of global piracy. We are dealing, for example, with Houthis shooting down, U.S. Reapers. We are seeing the Houthis being used for holding ships going through the Persian Gulf to ransom. We're dealing with a global situation here. So therefore, my question to you is, where should we stand? Professor Nalapat says, Professor Mahapatra, this is a pure case of terrorism. That's the only way we should look at it. Your take.
Yes, true. I agree with him. See, terrorism as an instrument of foreign policy has been adopted by the autocratic regimes, not today, for the last at least 30 years. And if you recall, the first visit of Prime Minister Modi to UAE, followed by Saudi Arabia, and one of the objectives of his visit at that time was to eliminate the ideological roots of terrorism. And to great extent, 10 years later, he was successful in accomplishing it. So the ideological roots, at least so far India's challenge of terrorism is concerned. But the ideological roots of terrorism do exist even in West Asia today. And that way it has been used by some of the autocratic regime and the clerical regime in this area has in fact complicated the geopolitics. And Israel happens to be the only victim, I won't say the only victim, the singularly, the victim, I tell you, the way it has suffered in the hands of these terrorists, whether it is Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis, the three infamous H, which has been patronized, created, nurtured, sustained by Iran with this single most objective of legitimizing its internal regime, clerical regime since 1979. Because if you look at Iran, it's far away from Israel. There is a triumph, there is a bonhomie between Iran and the Shah on the one side and Israel on the other. And it was facing the so-called pan-Arabism centered on Cairo. Now the things begin to change on the basis of the Islamic Revolution 1979. And certainly Iran tried to project itself as the leader in the Islamic world. And so this Israel became the centerpiece of the entire agenda of the Iranian revolutionary philosophy. So what needs to be understood by the people is why Iran has been supporting these groups, so-called unquote non-state actors. Basically, the basis of support is nothing but Islamism. Islamism is nothing but a kind of political ideology which has less to do with the religion per se, more to do with the political objectives. And Iran has been trying hard to an extent. The Turkish President Erdogan also tried to do it, but in vain, to project in the Islamic world as the leader, and the so-called psychological level, the concept of Islamic Ummah exists even today. So no wonder when this man was eliminated recently, and you look at these, the resonance in the Muslim world, including in Kashmir Valley. So what I'm trying to tell you is the kind of emotional things that it carries. This kind of terrorism propelled by Islamism as an ideology, supported by a relatively powerful country in the region, West Asia, that is Iran, has created a situation which is going to really pose a challenge to all other countries, including Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and many other countries, including Egypt. They have not been supporting Iran. They will never support Iran, even if they have some kind of moral support for the creation of a Palestinian state. So the whole thing has complicated West Asia to the extent, often I'm reminded of the famous statement by Karl Brown, who says the West Asia politics so much interrelated, everything related to everything. And Iranian authority, particularly Ayatollah Khamenei, needs to learn from this, that no single political actor would ever establish its will, whether external or regional power in West Asia, because this is a region quite complex. And sooner the Iranian authority give up this kind of ambition to become the regional hegemon, and at the cost of the security of Iran, and by supporting these Islamist groups, then I'm quite sure the peace and stability will restored in West Asia.
You put a wonderful and clinical analysis. I hope Professor Santosh Mehrotra sees reason, because it's never too late to realize, Professor Mehrotra, that we sometimes make the mistake of looking at things only through a particular prism. You see, Professor Santosh Mehrotra, if you hear
get my name right here after 10 years.
Yeah, Professor Mehrotra, if people like you don't realize that Pakistan, when it got the nuclear bomb, said, we've not got the nuclear bomb for ourselves. You see, this is an Islamic bomb. Similarly, Erdogan wanted to become the next caliph. Similarly, the Iranian regime wants to be the leader of the Muslim world. The question I never realized, Abhijit, why people like Dr. Mehrotra want to be the hangers-on. Why do you want to be the hangers-on?
For who? Hangers-on of who?
For all these people.
Oh, really? I don't know who the hell you're talking about.
You said my introductory 5 points were rubbish. You said that my introductory 5 points were wrong. But you cannot contradict even one of them.
I can.
You
Give
can't.
me time. I know you won't. Because it's too...
But the professor from JNU has actually put things in right perspective. See, this is a question of terrorism.
He didn't support a single one of your 5. Not one.
You may not. The viewers will. 95% of the viewers are with me. Abhijit Chawda, time to pick a side.
तुम्हारा चैनल ही वही है भाई. तुम्हारे सारे वही लोग हैंगे.
नहीं, कोई मेरे लोग नहीं है. मैं फोन लाइन खोल देता हूँ. This is I'm speaking. Professor Ashwini Mehrotra मेरे लोग नहीं है. They are eminent academics on their own right. Please don't be disrespectful to fellow panelists. Abhijit Chawda, time to pick a side. Which one is yours? I'll come to you next.
So
I didn't make any comment
let's
about
first talk about the two-state solution that was mentioned earlier. So let me just submit respectfully that Israel did offer the Palestinians a two-state solution by offering autonomy to Gaza and the West Bank. And what happened? They elected Hamas, they supported Hezbollah. That's what happened. And then there's continuous terrorism from the river to the sea. So we cannot blame Israel and say that they did not try to implement a two-state solution. Now, when it comes to picking a side, there's no question that India can never stand on the side of terror and terrorism. Anyone within India who supports terror organizations anywhere in the world stands against India's civilization values and national interest. So India clearly in this matter has to support Israel. We stand with the side of Israel. Now, when it comes to The bottom line, we actually must take our own side and we have to learn from the events of yesterday. One of the important things we have to learn from yesterday's events, given the spectrum of enemies that we ourselves have, is that our armed forces need to have a stockpile of tens of thousands of different kinds of missiles. Because see what happened yesterday. Iran spent 200 missiles and it's hardly had a dent on Israel. So we have a lot at stake in the region, in the West Asia region, in the Persian Gulf region. We must prioritize peace. On the issue of terrorism, etc., it is very important and it's a no-brainer. We support Israel. We stand on the side of Israel. But overall, we must try and persuade all sides to achieve peace, because Iran is a very important nation in this region. It's important to the regional balance. So is Israel. So overall, we must desire peace. And that's what we must prioritize and try to persuade all nations to pursue.
Yeah, but this is an ethical issue, the way I see it. It's an ethical issue, Dr. Chaudhary. At the end of the day, the question that comes to my mind is, do we support the taking of 240 citizens as hostages on October 7th? Do we support the killing of 1,200 innocent people at a music festival? Do we support the gang rape and videotaping of the gang rape of hundreds of women? And do we support the killing of 12 innocent children by the Hezbollah recently in the attack on Majd al-Shams in the occupied Golan Heights? People like Dr. Mehrotra and others will not want to even listen to this. They'll get angry. Sometimes I face situations where people become verbally violent with me and I remind them of what has happened, but they don't want to hear the other side right now. They've closed their ears and said, we are with Iran because we want the Islamist forces to win this battle. That's the way I see it. How do you see things building up? Which side would you pick?
First of all, I would like to say, sir, with all due respect, that we should get out of our binary thinking, because be it the Iranian authoritarianism or the Arab autocracy and the Israeli state, all of them are feeding each other, becoming each other's Frankenstein monster, helped by the arms lobby. Now let me tell you how this has all become a business model. For example, for Hamas, what they did on 7th of October, what they did with 1,200 innocent civilian lives, and the ramifications of it.
Yes.
Human life is human life.
Yes.
There cannot be any justification of it. Hamas itself is very autocratic. It is very dominating, patriarchal within Gaza Strip. No one who can question Hamas can stay alive for a very long time. At the same time, Hamas has its own diplomatic under-the-table channels with Qatar and Israel, something with Bibi Netanyahu allowed after 2009. Now, Israel, the president, he is under 3 corruption cases. And at the same time, there's a lot of questioning and protest movement developing around against him within the Israeli society before 7th of October. Now, coming to Hezbollah. Hezbollah again has lost a lot of its credibility.
No, what does that have to do with 7th of October? You're making the point.
Yeah.
But I think you're making a point which is disconnected. What does Netanyahu's pre-existing corruption charges and the fact that he is handling a delicate coalition situation have to do with the 7th October attack? I don't see the link.
Sir, because over and all, what is happening is, no matter what even Matt Miller said from State Department, the ceasefire negotiations are not happening. The hostages are still not back. That is one of the reasons why the protests are continuing in Israel. Also, after yesterday's attack, there's a very strong censorship that is happening in the Israeli media. When the David swing was attacked, so that you see them, do not see them in black and white. All of them are each other's Frankenstein monster. They are feeding each other. Everyone is milking from this humanitarian
crisis. One say to say milking. What would anyone do in Netanyahu's situation? He would hit back, and then people would say, oh, you're milking the situation. It's a bizarre argument. I mean, it's not like Narendra Modi ever asked for Pulwama to happen to carry out a Balakot.
No, but he can have a negotiation, sir.
Negotiation with whom?
UN, he has just like right now.
No, the UN is toothless. The UN. Okay, so I'll take that point again. Professor Nalapat, is there any possibility of a negotiation? Dr. Chaudhary says Netanyahu should not respond, he should negotiate. But my question is, negotiate with whom?
Look, let me point out that I would very respectfully disagree with the discussant on this question when she talks about authoritarian regimes and the clerical regime in Iran. May I point out that Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, is the first in the Al Saud family to openly oppose Wahhabism. Openly. The UAE, whether it is the UAE, whether it is Saudi Arabia, whether it is all these countries have adopted a very moderate policy. They welcome into their shows people of different faiths, and they are functioning as good international citizens. None of them are calling for the elimination of the Jewish people or the state of Israel. And I think it is, I have supported Mohammed bin Salman from the very beginning, and during the time when some kind of a targeted assassination took place. I have supported him for a simple reason. The major issue is he is opposing Wahhabism. And I am a good friend of the Iranian people. I have been there. It's a wonderful country. But I think the clerical regime needs to be clerical and go back to the seminary and go back to clerical learning and clerical teaching and not get involved in policy and politics. That will be good for them and good for Iran. So we stand with the Iranian people. And in my view, the Iranian people want to have their democratic government headed by President Pezeshkian in full control of the executive. They don't want a super executive on top. So I would only respectfully say, I see various differences between, for example, our very good friends in the GCC, all of whom are taking a very responsible position so far as moderation is concerned, so far as terror is concerned.
That's true.
And if I may point out, so far as extremist groups that camouflage themselves behind a very noble community, the Muslim community. Wahhabis call themselves Muslim. Khomeinists call themselves Muslim. Let me assure you that these fringe elements have nothing to do with the Muslims who overall are as
the Muslim world is divided on this. The Muslim world, the Muslim world is completely divided on this. Am I right?
Yes.
Dr. Chaudhary?
Yes.
Why are they divided on this?
Because definitely the Western imposed sectarian differences, primarily Shia Sunni.
True.
Second is the kind of, Hezbollah, Houthis and Hamas, whatever kind of funding and the proxy wars that they are running. The UAE, Saudi, other countries in the GCC have their own air bases, naval bases of US. They have different kinds of oil relations, arms relations with the West. That has forced them to be moderate to a certain view.
No, I think, would it be fair to say, Dr. Chaudhary, that business has become important?
It is.
Trade has become important.
Yes.
Economy has become important.
Especially
for UAE, for Saudi, they're progressive. And most importantly, they don't want to be seen to be supporting terrorism.
No, they can't be.
They can't be. They'll be victims themselves.
Yeah, and they are working towards more through artificial intelligence, through post-oil economy, through opening up their tourism, to getting more of globalization, because they want to be much more developed, even more than the West.
Precisely.
That is their agenda right now.
Precisely. So I want to take this opportunity to once again make my point tonight, and maybe Professor Mohapatra can take that forward, because unfortunately Professor Mohapatra, every time I make a reasonable argument, Professor Mehrotra only goes personal with me. I don't mind, I won't, he's senior to me, but the point being here, I always say, viewers, if you're watching this anywhere across India, if you're a nationalist, then please never support Iran. That would be the wrong thing to do at this time, because just in the way that the Pakistani army has used its assets to arm and support cross-border terrorism, similarly, the Quds Force, the IRGC of Iran, has supported terrorist groups. So it would be terrible for us to sympathize with Iran, because we are building a case for Pakistan in that case, and we should be very careful of even making that argument. Do you agree with me, Professor Mohapatra, on that point?
It's true. Some of this argument put forward by my predecessors, basically capture the part of the story.
Yes.
The essence of the conflict today, which is unfolding in West Asia, as usual, quite historically conflict-prone, is the way Iran has emerged as the regional hegemon since the end of the conflict, bloody conflict in Yemen, and preceded to by the conflict in Syria. If you see, all the proxies and allies of Iran had a periodic victory over the groups supported by Saudis and other Arab countries. And that victory, in a way, emboldened the clerical regime in Tehran to suddenly, stimulate those groups against Israel and provoke this group against Israel to do something historic, because of the way Iran began to be recognized as the power in West Asia. Look at the deal it subsequently signed with China, the 25-year-old strategic partnership deal with Iran, between Iran and China, in a way encouraged Iran to become more bold in its foreign policy ambition and drive in West Asia. So that needs to be noted. But underlying this, what has gained rationality, what has gained justification in West Asia is the revival of terrorism, which was once upon a time patronized by the Wahhabi Saudis, now begin to be patronized and nurtured and supported by Tehran. So it is basically change of actor, change of patron. So terrorism as an instrument of foreign policy, the underlying ideology of terrorism, that is Islamism, remain unchanged. So our concern is how best we do and what we can do to root out that ideological underpinning of terrorism as an instrument of foreign policy. Otherwise, our hostile neighbor will feel tempted to adopt the same again against India. So the concern is not only theological, not only normative, it is a real politic. That is how to deal with this concept of Islamism propelling the terrorism being expressed and manifested by these groups, the host of groups like the Hezbollah and Hamas. Somebody rightly mentioned, these groups internally have been losing the support in their respective areas, be it Hamas, be it Hezbollah in South Lebanon. Because some of the areas, personally I had visited, interacted with the people in South Lebanon, and I can tell you with certain amount of confidence that Hezbollah of late has been losing that kind of support once it had before. Because the people are very much, because Lebanon is a precarious republic, doesn't have a stable government. So unfortunately, Lebanon would become a kind of victim of the conflict in West Asia as it happened in the 1980s. Think about Lebanon, which is called the Switzerland of West Asia, experienced a bloody civil war for 15 years. Why the people, the Maronites, the Druze, the Sunnis would suffer because of the Hezbollah nonsense. So that's basically our concern. Third most important thing is, we are not against Iran per se. Iran today is trying to resolve a dilemma emanating from the two binaries, that is Islamiyat and the Iraniyat, that is the Persian Iran identity on the one side and Islamic identity on the other. So there are people, huge section, even today within Iran, particularly younger Iranians, who support this new identity called Iraniyat, Persianiyat, pre-Islamic Iran, which is secular, which is liberal, which has nothing to do with their personal belief system. So the fight is against the clerical regime in Tehran, not against Iran per se, which is nothing but a civilizational state like India.
No, we respect the civilizational heritage of Iran. We have great respect for Persian culture. But the issue here is this, and I will try one more attempt at showing Professor Mehrotra the light on this issue. See, Professor Mehrotra, what is happening is that the same people who lament the death of Yaqub Memon, the same people who say, Afzal hum sharminda hai, tere qatil zinda hai, are the same people who are supporting Iran today. And such people are so intellectually shallow that they do not realize that Pakistan and Iran are doing the same thing. They're trying to use terrorist groups for power projection. And such people, instead of taking a position on the issues for what they are, that there are some states who use non-state actors, terrorist groups for power projection, whether it be people with the Wahhabi mindset in the past, supporters of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or Hezbollah, Hamas, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Toiba, Hizbul Mujahideen, all the same. Absolutely the same. So we can't, we can't, no, one minute, let me tell you, one more. See, do not, do not, 1 minute, do not, allow me, Professor Mehrotra, do not conflate self-determination of Palestine with terrorism. It's my request to you. How is it an affirmation of the Palestinian cause?
Very good.
When the Hezbollah has been carrying out suicide bomb attacks? Don't forget what they did in the US Embassy in Beirut. It has nothing to do with Palestinians. Palestinian cause has become this overall umbrella. Don't bring in the Palestinian cause out here. The mass gang rape of Israeli women had nothing to do with the Palestinian cause.
Are you done?
No, I'm not done. I'm not done because the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq al-Hariri had nothing to do with the Palestinian cause. Please understand the bigger perspective. Don't give a Rahul Gandhi kind of argument. You see, let's go into depth on this issue. Iran is not supporting self-determination of Palestine. Because I have strong views on this issue.
Even Nalapat is smiling.
Nalapat is agreeing with me. But you can,
No,
I'll be quiet now. Okay, chalo, you are
He's
also.
very clever.
Okay, I'll be quiet. I won't say a word now. Because you understand what I'm saying. But you can respond.
What is there to respond? You are mixing up issues here. From the beginning, you've been mixing up issues.
How?
Look, very simple, very straightforward. I think, honestly, if you had a clear head, you would probably have agreed with what I was saying. And Dr. Chowdhury actually reaffirmed most of the things that I said. I just want to remind you of what both of us are saying. We seem to be on opposite sides, but actually we are not. We happen to be saying the same thing. What is it that we are saying? Mr. Netanyahu has been in power for well over a decade, despite the fact that he's facing massive resentment from Israelis.
That is his political problem.
Listen, let me finish. Now, I let you finish, you let me finish. What do you think Mr. Netanyahu was doing with Hamas? He was supporting Hamas. He allowed Hamas to thrive there. So let's not be so naive that you don't really understand what the hell is actually going on. There is a complexity to this which is recent, but you only want to completely forget about how historically a genocide has been carried out against the Palestinian people, which was completely unjustified, and the International Court of Justice has shown this beyond a shadow of doubt. I'm sorry to say, we are members of BRICS, and South Africans were behind that entire case. Let's not forget the complexity of these situations. You somehow sort of want to pass over all this.
No, I don't.
And go on with your own anti-Muslim rhetoric.
No, I've not said one anti-Muslim. No. You are bringing in the Muslim angle. I'm only talking terrorism.
Of course, I have to.
No. You are bringing in the. I am talking anti-terrorism.
5 points.
No.
I've made notes. All your 5 points are anti-Muslim.
No, let me tell you why you're wrong. I'll let Abhijit actually respond to you because he's been quiet. But I'll tell you something. Remember IC 814? Remember Masood Azhar? No. Arey bhai, sun lijiye aap. Remember IC 814? Remember Masood Azhar? Then you should also remember TWA 847, 150 passengers hijacked by the Hezbollah. Please, for God's sake, Mr. Mehrotra, Netanyahu is at least not a hijacker. Kisko support kar rahe aap? Suicide bombers, hijackers? Are you that desperate?
I'm not. Who told you I am? None of us.
Second point.
What an argument.
No, what an awkward defense.
Argument you're making.
One minute. Secondly, Abhijit Chawda, he says to me, secondly, Abhijit Chawda, he says to me, don't forget that Netanyahu allowed the Hamas to thrive. But if Netanyahu were to hit Hamas, the same people would say, oh, he's anti-humanity. I don't understand. You can't, you can't be on both sides. Abhijit Chawda, please respond. I'm not in this debate. I'm merely an anchor.
So it's very clear that Netanyahu has demonstrated great leadership. It's true that he is the leader of a coalition, maybe a fragile coalition, but he has not allowed that to deter him from taking decisive action in the favor of his national interest. So it's very important to see it from that perspective. He's done a great job as a leader, right? Now, we have spoken a lot about the complexity of this region, of the issue. Let me throw some more light on the complexity of this issue. We have Pakistan, which historically was India's #1 enemy. And Pakistan and Iran are not on good terms. You could say they are kind of adversaries, right? Now, Iran, its primary adversary is Israel, which is supported by the US. But Pakistan happens to be a newly minted US vassal or newly minted US client state after the events of 2022. So the question is, which side is Israel actually on? Have they ever explicitly taken a pro-India stance in its issues vis-a-vis Pakistan? There's also some problems. I have made it very clear I'm with Israel on this matter, of the terrorism matter. But there's also other questions. When you look at official maps on Israel's official websites, what sort of map of India is displayed? That's also a question we have to raise with our Israeli friends. And there's also the issue of the alleged support for cookie terrorists coming in from some quarters inside Israel. So when it comes to taking stances vis-a-vis nations, we have to look at the fact that these are all very complicated topics. Overall, we do stand with Israel completely, unconditionally on the issue of terrorism, but we do have our issues. So that's the point I would like to raise here.
We have our expectations also. I totally agree with you on this. Professor Nalapat, now, eventually, since I'm wrapping this up now, a lot of people say we should be on Israel's side. But a very relevant point here made by Abhijit, we should extract a price for it. Secondly, we have a very solid position with Iran as well. And we need that to continue. That allows us great depth in balancing the world. So what should we do now?
Arnab, allow me to defend you for a half a minute in a way that I'm sure all other discussions would agree with. The IRGC is not controlled by Pezeshkian.
No.
The foreign policy of Iran is not controlled by Pezeshkian.
Agreed.
Poor Shahbaz Sharif does not control the foreign policy of Pakistan.
Correct.
Nor does he control the military in Pakistan. The military, in fact, controls foreign policy, defense policy, and a lot of other, including a lot of goodies, if I may point out.
Yeah.
In this view, an extra constitutional authority is in power in both these states. And my view, as a friend of the people of Pakistan, as a friend of the people of Iran, that extra constitutional authority should not be there. And they should make way. The military should go back to the barracks and listen to the civilian leadership. And in the case of Iran, the clerics should go back to basically researching, studying, and prayer, and not get involved in completely non-spiritual pursuits, such as telling the IRGC to lob missiles at another state. So I would only say, Arnab, that from that point of view, your conflation of Iran and Pakistan is correct. Both have extra constitutional authorities that wield extraordinary power. And I think for their own sake, and for sake of the people, and for sake of peace in the world, it's important that these extra constitutional authorities go away. Because finally, Arnab, I want to say, where democracy is concerned, where the people are concerned, whether it be Israel or Iran or India or anywhere else, nobody wants to see war. But only a handful of elites want to see the war. And these elites, unfortunately, find it much easier to reach into systems where you have extra constitutional authority than systems where rely on the popular vote. So I'm only saying, for heaven's sake, from that point of view, Arnab, your stand on Israel and Iran is absolutely justified.
Well, thank you very much for that. This has been a very, very interesting discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, I will wrap this up with just one thought. The only people who would agree to a war would be the Americans. The Americans want a war. The Americans need a war. The American deep state thrives on war. And as far as America is concerned, it's the one country where you can't distinguish between Republicans and Democrats as far as war is concerned. As has been recently said by Professor Jeffrey Sachs, Victoria Nuland has been there in the State Department through every single administration, Democratic or Republican. These are the warmongers. So, ladies and gentlemen, we need to be extremely careful. But for now, for us, this is an issue of terrorism, plain and simple. Because like Israel has the right to defend itself, so do we. I shall see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. once again. Good night and goodbye.
Time for a quick breather. Arnab will be right back with the debate.
Co-powered by Jaguar Bath & Light.
Amity has been ranked amongst the top 3% universities globally, a testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked quality.
I don't care for no songs and proses. I don't care for no sweet boys with roses. I'm too busy, baby, making plans on how to get me one of them manly men. All I want is a touch of love.